I've got another review for you. I took one for the team, and I went and saw Morbius last night. The idea of Michael Morbius in the superhero canon is a pretty cool one. This is a scientist who has a blood condition who transforms himself into a vampire. That old chestnut. And they got Jared Leto, who is a terrific actor, and I have to say, I actually enjoyed Jared Leto in this movie because it wasn't, I mean, he obviously has these showy moments where he's affected and there's digital makeup and he turns into a vampire and he's trying to be creepy, but I enjoyed his performance as this kind of hobbled character because his blood condition is making him very weak, and he's got to, use a cane to walk around, and he's, he's a character that has been through stuff, but he felt quite human. He's also a character that has a lot of empathy, and so there's this interesting juxtaposition of this, bloodthirsty character who literally lives on the blood of other people, but he's also an incredibly, gifted mind and an empathetic soul. He's a physician, and so he actually wins a Nobel Peace Prize in the movie for creating artificial blood. What a coincidence, right? So he, as his vampire character, ends up drinking this artificial blood until he has this real blood, like red blood, they call it, human blood thirst, and so he has to deal with that. And the setup for the film was actually pretty good. It was going along pretty good. And then kind of what happens is there's a big bad that gets introduced into this title. A lot of the build-up and the creation of Morbius and the myth of the character actually is kind of rad. There's some cool visual effects. He's got bat radar, so he can sense things everywhere. They do this kind of liquid visual effect across everything. And he also picks up the idea that he can kind of surf on airwaves and things like that, so he can fly. And I kind of dug all of that, but the big bad, played by Matt Smith, really breaks everything down into it's just going head to head with these two superpowered beings going back and forth and crashing through city walls and trying to punch each other, and it's not very smart, and it kind of pops the balloon of all of the work that has happened so far in the film, and it just sort of focuses the camera on this back and forth that doesn't make a lot of sense. And the other thing that the whole setup for these two characters is a flashback sequence that was really poorly handled. There's no other way to say it. So there's no emotional investment in this relationship, and the movie really hinges on you having this idea that you care about how these two characters interact, and it's just not great, and then it's over, and the movie is incredibly short. And so there is this cool kind of build up to this super-powered being coming to terms with the abilities that he has and what that means in the real world. And of course, the cops are chasing him. But then it's over. And the way that it ends is just so bloody stupid. And then there's a huge emphasis on Sony's part. And I can't believe that Marvel had any real say in any of this, to kind of inject that this is part of a larger universe like they're doing in every good Marvel creation out there, and it just felt so artificial and superfluous and tacky. It was so poorly handled, the whole climax and ending of all of this, that it just leaves a terrible you leave the theater and you're like, what did I waste my time with there? That was just awful. And it's too bad, because I think that the character of Morbius, who has been around since the 70s, there was a 1971 comic where the character was revealed, and I read this book, and it was really cool. I mean, the idea of this vampire sort of self-forming himself and then working as a villain, fighting against Spider-Man, and eventually becoming a bit of an anti-hero, and then being a part of the supernatural subculture of the Marvel universe, the comic universe. It is a perfect platform to grow and to see the idea of Morbius beside Ghost Rider or Blade. I mean, that would be an interesting matchup, right? To see Blade and Morbius. But the movie just kills itself. It's so flat, and it just devolves into nothing. Even though I like some of the ingredients. I like Jared Leto, and the effects were pretty cool, and the idea of the character is pretty cool, and so I was having a good time for, I'd say, about 45 minutes of the film, and then I really was not having a good time. And then it was like, oh my God, I'd rather watch Moon Knight 4 or 5 more times than sit and watch this thing. It was just pathetic. It felt like they ran out of ideas and or money, or somebody saw a test screening and people were flipping out, and they tried to save it and make it more action-packed, or whatever they did not work. And it certainly doesn't have the light touch that the Spider-Man stuff has had over the last little while, in terms of character building and bringing us in emotionally. This one does not have that. And the other thing I got to say, too, is like Sony has got to stop with this BS of introducing these villains to Spider-Man, or these characters that are ancillary to Spider-Man, and then Spider-Man is nowhere to be seen. And, it just feels so dumb. It's like, work it out and bring Spider-Man. I don't know, like, you got all kinds of Spider-Mans now, right? So work it out. So you can have, if you're going to say it, get them in there. Don't tease them on posters and the trailers and stuff. Like, work your shit out and get your Spider-Man into your thing, because people end up talking about Spider-Man, and it's just like, well, that was stupid. And we saw that with the Venom movies, which are better than this, by the way, and those ain't great. But I can't completely just throw this totally under the bus. I don't think it's the worst. Actually, yeah, it probably is. I think it is the worst Marvel thing I've seen. Maybe it's there with the Fantastic Four remake that Miles Teller was in. That was the worst. That was awful. Okay, so there's some company for this one, but it's down there. It's down in the subterranean depths of the Marvel experiences out there. I would really hazard and warn you guys, like, honestly, don't go see Morbius in theaters. It's not worth it. Wait till it comes home. I know there's going to be a lot of curiosity about it. They tease more, but I don't know, man. I don't know. I mean, if it makes money, they'll make more for sure. And I can't fault Leto. Like, I think it's interesting. They hired a literal vampire to play a vampire. Guy does not age. So good work there. But everything else is kind of trashy. I'm going to give Morbius a 3.5 out of 10.